in some cultures, when you're old enough, you go out and you hunt with the men, and in my family, you go out and you play, release all that pain into the guitar if you can't afford a therapist. Don't be afraid to go outside of that box. Don't pin yourself down. There's 12 notes, you know, make them work for you. Suffice to say, like, you go through a good bit of trauma, like you gotta find a way to really express that, and sometimes you just do it unknowingly. And whether it's, you know, through my fingers or through the use of my voice, it's all coming from the same place. I want to get this point across, and I want to feel something, you know, and I want to be present in the moment.
Everyone, Dinesh here from the Gibson Gear Guide, and I'm sitting with the one and only Mr. Marcus King. Marcus, what a pleasure to have you on the show, man. It's been a long time. We've been waiting for you, and I appreciate you taking the time to come down, man. Got a lot of great things to talk about.
Yes, sir. Glad to be back.
Oh, love it, love it. And I'm loving the new signature model here, this latest version of it. We'll get into that. But man, I just really wanted to, you know, thank you again, and lots to talk about. Man, you know, you've been known for just the finger picking, the jazz, you know, the blues, the southern feel, and I love how you just mix it all together. The main thing that really stands out to me is the singing and the playing. I think a lot of times as guitar players, we struggle with that. We struggle with the having to play guitar well, and then trying to figure out how to balance the singing out, you know? Sure. And you do both really well, so it's really interesting for me to see a player that comes along where both are so strong. You know.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I think we should just start at the beginning, really, which is just talking about like how you started playing, why'd you pick up the guitar, and some of your early inspirations, you know.
Sure. My first memory really is of, you know, opening my dad's case for his Epiphone Eldorado, and you know, and then later I drove an Eldorado, and you know, he re-gifted me the Eldorado from my childhood, which was, it was not particularly like a sought after model, but he had it since the 70s, and it was just always a really great guitar that was always around. And it's my first memory is of that guitar and of this guitar, which was my grandfather's. And my dad played a Gibson SG. Wow. My uncle played a Les Paul Deluxe. So there was always Gibsons around the house, and they all needed fret jobs too. That's why I like really small frets on my guitars.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That's what I grew up playing, was just guitars that all needed fret jobs really badly. So, you know, in some cultures, when you're old enough, you go out and you hunt with the men, and in my family, you go out and you play, and it was just viewed as an honest way to make a living, you know?
Yeah.
It's just blue collar work, was being on the road and playing music. So it was something that was always really encouraged in my house. and we also grew up playing in church, and having that conviction at a young age and being that passionate about music and seeing the joy that music could really bring people from an early age was really, a big part of my makeup as an artist or as a person.
Man, that's incredible. So it was just naturally there. It was already there.
I never thought about doing anything else.
Yeah.
I'm not good at much else.
Dude, I hear that. That's all right though. I hear the fret job thing. It's because everyone was playing those guitars.
Yeah, they were loved.
Man, that's awesome. So, and always around the Gibsons. I hear that. So now, as far as learning, was this something that you just picked up because it was happening in the family on a regular basis, or did you have private lessons? Or
coming up in my house, my grandfather was a really, really smart man. He wasn't. I mean, he was educated. He went back to college when he was in the Air Force, and he played country and Western music every weekend. But he developed like a really archaic version of like tablature almost when my dad was little, and he still had the outline of it for me when I was coming up. And he basically, traced my hand on the neck of a guitar, and he would kind of pinpoint, where my fingers should go.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it's essentially just tablature, and that kind of got me going, and it teach me stuff like,
Nice.
Peter Gunn and Louie, some rudimental kind of stuff, and it was all really just by ear, except for the number system, which is widely used in popular music, especially within the studio. So understanding that you got pretty much 1 through 8, and then we would just kind of communicate that way in whatever key we were in, and we'd mostly be talking about 1, 4, or 5, right? Sometimes a 3 thrown in there.
Yeah.
So just kind of that mentality, and just like the basic knowledge, the basic understanding that you needed to be a gigging musician, right? And the part that was never really talked about directly, but it was, as I think about it in hindsight, it was always very present, is the joy that music could bring and the ability it had to heal.
Yes.
And that was always something that was always really unspoken, but it was something I could always feel in my spirit. And when my grandfather passed away, he had left his 345 to my dad. And when I was 16 or 17, and I was going the furthest I'd ever gone from home. So my dad gave me Big Red to kind of be like a totem pole, a grounding, reminder of home.
That's great.
Yeah, but as far as just like growing up, they would teach me just the basics to get by. And then when I started improvising and I started, I mean, suffice to say, like, you go through a good bit of trauma, like you gotta find a way to really express that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just do it unknowingly, and you just release all that pain into the guitar. If you can't afford a therapist. But anyway, and then when I was in high school, I studied with Steve Watson at the Fine Arts Center.
Okay.
I was lucky enough to go there on some form of scholarship situation. So in 10th and 11th grade, I studied jazz theory.
Nice.
And basically what that was, I akin it to people that know how to speak, but they don't know how to read, English language. So you know how to speak it, but you don't know how to read it, and you don't know how to put a name to the vocabulary that you have. And that's kind of what that did for me, was it established a vocabulary of some things that I was already doing, and gave me even more of the vocabulary so I could better articulate myself and better prepare myself for a life of, working in music.
That's a really good way of putting that down and phrasing that. I think sometimes when we think about like learning music theory and going into learning, jazz and all that kind of stuff, we get intimidated because we come in like, I know I'm the same when it comes to like learning by ear mostly, and then having to learn some of the theory stuff along the way to go, oh, if I need to be in certain situations, I'm gonna have to know some of the knowledge behind this and not just get by on how quick I can catch the chords, or yeah, let me have that piece of music ahead of time and memorize it, you know. Then if there's a key change or they want to change something on the fly and they want to add in, like you're saying, you know, when you're in the 1-4-5 and add the 3, and it's like, oh man, I got to know what that means. Now, studying with Steve, is that where a lot of your playing came to fruition, where you were able to kind of maybe break outside of some of those boxes, like we call it the blues box, adding some of that stuff in? Because I noticed when we did that intro jam, there was some stuff there where I was like, whoa, like where are we, like, you know, I had to keep concentrating on my rhythm, just hearing how you went outside, but still inside, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the framework, you know, for me, whenever I'm speaking to somebody about guitar or about how to, you know, frame it in your mind, it's like if you can avoid those boxes that you refer to, you know, because I never really got into those boxes. My father would teach me some things like in the pentatonic vein.
Yeah.
We wouldn't just focus on that. We'd focus on, you know, the major scale, just in A. So just all the notes within that scale, and then I would kind of think about it that way. I mean,
Oh, I
there's
see.
12 notes, so I've got a pretty good shot at hitting the right one as long as I'm within this window of the key, you know. And if the song's not changing keys, you've got a pretty good, you know, yeah. I mean, you got a lot of notes to choose from.
Right.
And then later on, I just was more interested in the wrong notes, you know. I wanted to, you know, between Steve Watson and my father and my grandfather, there was also Colonel Bruce Hampton, who was just, you know, the king of what he called outstruction, you know,
Okay.
and just basically learning how to not take it too serious, learning the rules just in order to break them. I was really into like Sun Ra too, and we had our opportunity to open up for the orchestra in Brooklyn when I was a kid, and you know, I was just really into that idea of just letting it be true expression, you know, like whatever you're feeling. Just like when I play, I try not to think about it at all. But the reason I'm able to do that, I feel like, is because of the hours I spent, you know, really
Yeah.
becoming acquainted with the instrument.
You know, I do believe it's that the more familiar you get with it, it's the easier to just let go and let it shine. Who were some of your influences, like when it comes to just, you know, maybe inspirational as like bands or other, you know, avenues where it just came to like what your musical influence became besides the playing?
For me, all my influences, it really all goes back to the one word that I can use across all the genres that I listen to, all the musicians and inspirations, is intention. And like when you hear B.B. King play, you know, just one note, or Albert King, same thing, or you hear James Brown say something, or Sam Cooke, or David Ruffin, Bobby Womack, Aretha Franklin, Tina Turner. I was really influenced by singers, and I was influenced by anything that I could feel was authentic and the intention was pure, and it's from people that, you know, just have to get it out,
Yeah.
that have something to say. I was never really interested in what was happening on the radio. I came up at a pretty bad time for radio, but you know, even then I was interested in like the emotion behind like a Marshall Mathers.
Oh, sure.
And that's the only CD I had as a kid that my grandfather threw away, was my Eminem CD.
Yeah.
So had that not happened, I may have had more of a career in hip hop. But
There you go.
I'm still really influenced by it. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of lyricists out there that just flow so melodically that it really influences my playing. Like,
Sure.
like listen to Wu-Tang Clan and like the way Method Man, you know, approaches his styling is just different from anybody else, and it's really influencing the way that I write and the way that I think about the way that you can let it all out, and especially on the guitar on the fretboard.
Right.
You know,
That's interesting. That totally makes sense. Now, when it comes to your writing styles, how do you approach writing in the vein of what we talked about earlier, where you're singing and playing? Like, I'll find myself sometimes having to doctor what I'm playing in order to be able to sing certain things. And I think a lot of us, you know, sometimes go, well, might be kind of hard for me to play this riff while I'm singing, so maybe I'll just hold off on a rhythmic thing and then bring the riff in when I'm not, you know, how does that really affect you when you're writing tunes?
I don't think about it much when I'm writing.
Got it.
But as far as, you know, when I'm putting it into action, I'm just focusing on letting everything through the same vessel.
Yeah.
And this is all the same vehicle, you know? So we're trying to get the same point across.
Love it.
And whether it's, you know, through my fingers or through the use of my voice, it's all coming from the same place. I want to get this point across, and I want to feel something, you know, and I want to be present in the moment. And it's really easy to dissociate and just rely on muscle memory. And I try really hard to be present and be in the moment and allow it to shine through to others. But as far as like when I'm writing, you know, I guess the only time that I do think about it is, you know, if I have to think about what I'm playing while I'm singing, I'm playing too much.
Woo! Love it. Yeah.
So that's a good way to keep it in mind.
That's fantastic.
Unless you're doing like a manic depression or something like that, which is, you know, a good example of like, there's the rule and this is how you fucking break it, you know?
Could you just give me an example of how you took that pentatonic and then kind of just went outside the box and went somewhere with it? Just kind of while I maybe just jam on that for a second, just to kind of give us a little break on how to walk outside.
Well, I'll tell you a good, if you want, just hit me a big E minor.
Yeah.
Just give me that. So a good way for you to walk outside a little bit, and this is where I always start whenever I'm teaching somebody. First place to start would be, you're in E minor, so just Dorian is always a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
So just go down to D major. So that's going to open up a whole other world of possibilities outside of that pentatonic box.
That's fantastic.
But it's not too far removed.
Yeah.
That it makes you, you know, overwhelmed or intimidated, like you said.
That's a fantastic move, and the way you just explained it to me is very simple. I get that. Wow, that's great. And just knowing that you had to go into D from that E minor, that's eye-opening. And then you're probably able to mix that with the pentatonic, of course.
Yeah,
on top of
absolutely.
that. That's great.
Pentatonic's always there.
Always there. That's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
I've worked with a lot of just incredible jazz musicians and like a good friend of mine, Mike Seal and Taylor Lee, who I'd like to name because they're just fantastic players. And they said, man, we're going to write a book called Everything Cool is Usually Pentatonic. You know, even if you're listening to a Coltrane or, you know, Sonny Rollins or somebody like that, they hit something really hip and you're like, man, what was that? And you go back and you try to notate it and it's pentatonic, you know.
That's fantastic.
It tends to happen a lot. It's just a really universally just digestible kind of framework.
That's great. That's great. That's a great little lesson there for sure. Now, you know, you're a hollow body player.
Yeah, a lot of times.
I see a lot of that, and you know, I'm just curious. You know, is there something specific about the 345 here, tone-wise? Is there anything that you do differently when you're playing? Are you writing the volumes and the tones while you're doing stuff, man? And you know, what's kind of in your arsenal there when you're using this weapon here? You
know, like these tone knobs, like they're either off or on. You know, if I really want to accomplish like what Clapton called the woman tone, I'll just turn them down. But I've never really, with the 345, had to adjust them much.
Okay.
Because that bridge pickup setting's always just right on. It's pure. And with my 345, which is different than this one because it's stereo, and I don't want to pull out the PAFs to you know, fuck with that at all.
Yeah.
So I didn't bother with rewiring it. So I use a stereo cable. Or I use a regular cable because I'm swapping guitars in and out. So I'm usually one pickup at a time anyway.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I don't really have the option of swapping like you do on this newer model. So I usually plug it all the way in and then I'm locked in. Or I can pull it halfway out and I can go to the neck. But I don't do that.
You don't do that, yeah.
So we're just bridge pickup. And, you know, the tonality of it's just so pure. And what I've always really liked about, you know, like a 345 is that it's really versatile, you know, and I never really found the need to use the tone knobs because I feel you can do it in your hands, you know, and just your attack and the way that you're able to make it respond, you know what I mean?
Now, this bridge, there's no arm here, but
Yeah.
the significance of that, because I've noticed I've played some Trinis in the past, and I know that bridge, you know, it's influential on the tone of the guitar. Did you find that there's something magical going on here with this type of bridge here that you've stayed on that model, that you've kept on there?
Yeah, so when I got the guitar from my dad, he had convinced my grandfather to put a stop tailpiece. So that's what he did. But all the photographs that I had of my grandfather in the 60s and 70s, you know, playing out in clubs, he always had this, you know, maestro, the sideways vibrola.
Yeah.
And I always just thought that looked so sharp, man.
It does, man. It gives it a royal, like, kind of vibe to it. You know?
It's like taking the grill off your Cadillac.
Thank you.
You know?
Yes, that's exactly it.
So
and this new version of your model, now I know we did a custom shop one. I've got that one hanging back there. This new model is basically, you know, it's still got, you know, custom buckers and all that. I'm just curious, you know, what was the thinking behind re-releasing this again? I know the past one was limited, right?
Yeah, it sure was. And I was really proud of that model, and I was really thankful to be able to, you know, share that model with friends and to give a model actually to my dad. Less than 10 years after he gave me my grandfather's guitar, I was able to give him a replica of it back so he could have it for his arsenal. And that really meant a great deal to my family because that guitar is such a, you know, just physical representation of the patriarch of our family that we lost. And with this model, what I like is, you know, the variatone is really cool, but I don't use it. My grandfather didn't use it. Most of the guys I know that have a 345 don't really use it. In the studio, sometimes I'll mess with different settings, but live, you know, it affects the volume in such a way that I kind of keep it in one position.
Sure.
So to not have it on here is, you know,
Just simplified.
it's not really affecting anything. So this is a quasi-simplified version of the custom shop that we did and the one that I carry. And if I recall correctly, I mean, I know on my Big Red, you know, it still has the arm, but it's still locked down underneath here.
Yeah.
You know, when you take this cap off,
Right.
it's pretty much a stop tailpiece, but down here. So you get the aesthetic of it, but you don't get the effects of the tuning issues or anything like that. The arm's not in the way of the effects here. And you got a mono input, which is going to be a lot easier for you.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I love it. More accessible, easier straight ahead, and it's going to be around for people to grab that missed the custom shop version. I love it. Really cool to see that come back out here and resurface with you. Marcus, I know we're running out of time here. It's getting kind of short, but I wanted to find out from you, you know, what do you got coming up here? I hear there's some new works coming out and there's probably some playing coming. What's going on for you on the horizon here coming up soon?
Yeah, man. Well, we're really excited. We just released the first single. We're focusing all of our attention now on the next singles. We got a new record coming out this year. It's a collection of songs that the band and I recorded mostly in Macon, Georgia, at the old Capricorn Studios. So there's a lot of really wonderful energy in there. It's one of the first collaborative efforts that we've done since 2018. So it's nice to be back in the studio with my band and playing songs that I wrote. And it's just it's a very cathartic album for me, and I'm really thrilled to share it with everybody. But Big Red definitely has a lot of moments on that album.
That's fantastic, man. That's great. That's great. I'm looking forward to hearing that. And then you'll be obviously supporting all this with some touring.
Oh, yeah. We got some great big tours coming up. We're about to go back over to Europe, and then we'll come back. I know we're playing Bonnaroo this year.
Oh, hey, there you go. Nice,
Yeah,
man.
it's our first time playing Bonnaroo.
Wow.
And in the fall, you know, we're going to be doing some dates with our friend Cody Johnson, some dates with our friend Eric Church. So you have plenty of opportunities to see us out on the road. It's going to be a
That's
big
great,
year.
man. That's great. And you're always busy, so I love it. Man, and you know, this whole interview, you've said a lot of inspirational things. And I love the fact that you're so real about it, man. Talking about, it actually reminded me that this is a place of joy and you got to bring out what's inside you. Is there anything that you haven't said you feel like you want to say to any of our new players out there, someone that might be struggling with the instrument or someone that's just thinking about picking it up? You know, what maybe you can give us some words of wisdom here that, and you've shared a lot already, which is fantastic.
Well, sure. Well, I appreciate that. You know, when I was in grade school, I was taking violin lessons because my grandfather played the fiddle. So I got into playing fiddle in around fifth and sixth grade. And the teacher had a big sign on the wall that said, like, never play like no one's watching. And I always hated it. Like, even from fifth grade, I was like, that's no fun, you know? How are you gonna figure out how good the wrong notes feel sometimes? You know, if you've got any anger or if you got any aggression or a pain or hurt, that doesn't always fit within the notes that are gonna fit in that song. You know, it's not gonna fit in a box.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to go outside of that box. Don't pin yourself down. There's 12 notes, you know, make them work for you, you know?
That's right. I love it. I love it, man. Thank you. Thank you for that. Well,
Yeah,
man,
thank
we
you.
look forward to everything that's coming out here. We look forward to the release of this new version of the 345. And man, the story behind it is just incredible. And dude, it's been a wonderful time having you here on The Gear Guy. We really appreciate you and the insights and your realness, man. It really shines through.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you,
for having
brother.
me.
I appreciate it. Why don't we do a little jam and,
Yeah.
and we'll head out of here, huh?
Let's do it.
Well, everybody, Dinesh here from Gibson again. And again, Mr. Marcus King. Appreciate it. Thank you, Marcus.
Yes, sir.
All right. Very nice, my friend. Appreciate
too,
it, man.
man.
Thank you.
Great
Thank you.
plan. Great plan.